You've created a lovely scene in Blender, generated a render that looks fantastic. But when you export it as a GLB and load it into Three.js, it's underwhelming. Adding lights and shadows helps a bit, but it's still nowhere near your Blender render. The secret sauce? Baking. As a French person, I know a thing or two about baking. In this video, I'll walk you through the core principles of baking, what it is, why it matters, and how to achieve it with Blender. Before starting, if you want to create amazing 3D websites but feeling a bit lost with all the technical terms, my course React 3 Fiber, the ultimate guide to 3D web development, is like a roadmap to help you build cool 3D projects with Three.js and React step by step. It's all hands-on and perfect for getting you from beginner to building pro-level projects. Link in the description. We have our Blender file opened here. I will put it in the final repository. Let's check what we have if we switch to rendered mode. The rendering currently is done in cycles, as you can see here on the bottom right. And the output is pretty nice. If you move the camera, you still have a lovely view of it. It takes a few frames to render, and we'd like a similar output for our Three.js project. Let's try to first export it. Go to File, Export, and GLB, GLTF. And to have an output where to put our file, we will clone my web GPU starter. Link in the description. Git clone, paste the URL, and I will store it in R3F baking. Once cloned, File, Open folder, open it. Run yarn to install the dependencies, and yarn dev to start the development server. We can follow the URL. We have the starter pack up and running. To have somewhere to load our model, in public, create a folder named models. And now to export our GLB inside R3F baking, public models. We can keep the default name living room. And on the export settings here in the right, we want to include everything so we can keep it. Data mesh apply modifiers, because I know there are some subdivisions, some things that need to be applied to be exported. Then on the material, we can switch the images to WebP to reduce the file size while maintaining the quality, and enable compression. That should be good. Export GLTF. Now let's load it into our scene. Inside the experience, we have the default cube that we saw earlier. Let's replace it with the GLTF component. The source, it works like images, so you just paste the path to the file. Living room.glb. Okay. Now it is loaded, but it's entirely black. It needs light. We can add an ambient light with an intensity of 1. And here is what we get. It looks very flat, while our file is more something like this, much better. Still, we can enhance it by using an environment map. Let's use the sunset preset. It's a bit better. It's brighter and has more depth. And we like shadows, so we can add a directional light, put it at 555 with an intensity of 2, and we want the shadow, so use cast shadow. And on the GLTF, we need to use receive shadow and also cast shadow. Okay, we have some shadows in the back, but we have shadow acne. To avoid it on the directional light, we can use shadow, normal bias, and use a small value. Okay, now it disappeared. We have subtle shadows, but still far from perfect. That's because real-time rendering in Three.js or any game engine needs to take shortcuts for the lighting calculation. If you look in Blender, now it looks great, but if I move the camera, it will re-render it and it takes a few frames, but you can't expect it in a web experience or in a game. Well, on some projects you might accept it, that it is slower to render, but most of the time you want a nice frame rate. What you see in Three.js is a bit the equivalent of Eevee, which is made for real-time lighting. And now you can see that the rendering is a bit similar to what we got in Three.js. A bit different because the light settings are not the same, but you can see the rendering is far from what we get in cycles. That's where baking is the solution to bring those level of details into our Three.js project. To explain what it is and how it works, let's simply bake our scene. Let's start with the floor. So here we have the floor that is named BG. Let's go into shading. I need to go into object to see the shading, the material of our background, of our floor. So currently, if I go to material preview, it's a simple material that has a purplish color. The process of baking is we will render the scene in cycles, like we have here, and record the light information, the shadows information into a texture. And then on our material, instead of using this material, we will use the image texture of the light that has been baked into a texture. So first, let's do a simple baking the manual way, because there are better techniques that we will use right after. So first, we want to bake the light into an image texture. We need to create an image texture node on our material. We need to create the image that it will save into. Click on new and name it BG texture. For the size, we can keep it. Color black, we will paint the color on top of it. I don't think we need alpha because there's nothing transparent on the ground. And hit new image. Okay, be sure that it is highlighted. So click on it. You can see it's this texture it will bake into. Keep it like this with the texture highlighted. Now let's go to UV editing. It is to tell where we want to bake the lighting information on the texture. We will talk more about the UVs later, but here you can see on the left that this plane is taking the whole size of the texture. It's just a quick check, but it's fine. We can bake all the lighting information onto the texture. Okay, now let's go back to layout. Be sure that you are in object mode. I will move my face. Here I am. And then on the bottom right, render engine, be sure you are in cycles to be able to bake. And then I will hide Simplebake for now. It's for later. Now we want a manual bake. So here, simply, you have options about what you want to bake. I will choose combine because I want all the lighting information. I will keep the default settings and then hit bake. You can see on the bottom here that the baking is in progress. Because we are baking only this, it was pretty fast and it was using the max samples of our render here. I have 1024, which is a good starting point. So the baking is done. Let's check what it baked. So now you can see inside background texture, we have here the light that are saved into the texture, but it's still not applied on our mesh. If we go into material preview, this is what we have currently. We need to change our material to bind the texture to the color of it. Here, we can simply attach it here. We can put the roughness to the maximum so it's not impacted anymore by the lighting. Go to layout. Now we are in material preview, which means we don't have shadows calculation and so on, but the floor has the nice colors, the nice baking we have done. But let's say you move some objects and you want to bake again because the shadows are not at the correct position. What you would need to do if you do the bake manually is to remove the connection here, reset the different changes of parameter you made, bake again, and then reattach it, which is very painful, especially as currently we only have one object, but imagine doing it for all the different objects of our scene, you would cry. That's why we will use the Simplebake plugin available on Superhive, which was before Blender Market. It costs $20, but if you value your time correctly, it's totally worth it. Alright, let's try to redo the bake using Simplebake, the bake of our floor here. Here we have our floor selected. And then we won't use bake anymore but instead we will use the plugin Simplebake. You can see there is an update available, but it was working fine, so I won't update it right now. What we want to do is a cycles bake. We will talk about the PBR bake in another video. You can save presets, you choose the objects you want to add to. For now, we just want the floor. Let's click on add. Then the settings of cycled bake. We can keep the default. We will dive into the parameters later. Just be sure the denoiser for now is fast, so it won't take much time. Then for what it does after the bake, other settings, copy objects and apply bakes. So it's something we were doing manually. It can do it for us, creating a new object with the right material. You can choose between principled BSDF, emission or background. I will cover the different use cases in another video, but let's choose background. What it does is Three.js will interpret it as a mesh basic material, so you won't have shadows on it or it won't be impacted by the light. Let's take it. Be sure you are in GPU compute to have a quick bake. And all right, let's bake it. Okay, now the bake is finished. I can click on OK. Switch to material preview. I have the bake here correctly. And you can see what it did is my original object, it has been hidden. And in a new collection named Simplebake, you have the same name, bg_baked, which is a copy of the object with a different material. You can see it has the background and it's biting the texture of the bake into our object. If you want to bake it again, you simply delete it, unhide the object and bake with Simplebake. No need to touch the materials anymore, making you gain a lot of time. Now, let's say we want to bake, so we will keep this one, the floor is baked. We want to bake the painting. Frame selected to see it from close. And I want to bake it because, well, I want to bake all the objects, but I want to bake this one now because you can look at it. It is already containing an image. It has a texture on the material showing what is displayed on the object. If we go to UV editing, this is the UV of our object. And these UVs are used to determine what is used in the image that we are using. So if I move it, we will have the top of the boat or the bottom of it. I can scale it up and down. This is what is used as the input for what is displayed here. But when we are baking, we need other UVs to say where we want to bake into, as most of the time we want the biggest one possible. To create other UVs, on the bottom right, open UV map, click the plus button and name it Simplebake. So now we can switch between two UVs on our object. So if I click on Simplebake, you can see it is in blue. It means I'm currently editing these ones. So if I edit them, you can see nothing is happening because it's not the one that are used for the rendering. If I switch to this one, now you can see it's changing, but we don't want this. We want to use the old ones for what we use in the image texture, in the existing one. And Simplebake, it is used to say where we bake into our texture. Here, I think we could keep the default UVs, maybe scale them to take the most of the size. But as they are already flat, we can keep them like this. Okay, that's good for the frame. Let's go on the, well, that was the painting. Let's go to the frame, go to edit mode. Here you have UVs, but I'm not sure they are perfect. Still, if it's not using a texture, it's a good practice to create a new UV map, name it Simplebake, and to work on that. Then Smart UV project, keep the default settings, unwrap, and you now have a flat texture, no overlapped UV islands, allowing us to bake the colors into the texture. When you do Smart UV project, you have different parameters, for example, island margin, which is to create some space between the different islands. We will see later why it's important, but for now, let's keep it at 0 and unwrap. Reducing the space, it's taking most of the available space possible for our UVs, resulting in the best quality possible in the end. Okay, let's continue preparing our objects. So we have prepared the painting, the frame. Let's do the walls and the floor. So let's start with the floor. Go to UV editing, and we will edit the UV of it. Again, we create a new UV map, name it Simplebake. And here we will try to UV unwrap it correctly. Let's explain UV unwrapping properly. We can toggle local view to only see that object. And here, if we use unwrap angle based, it's requesting some sims, or if we do smart UV project, it won't be the best possible UVs for a box because it is separating the different UVs, while it could be like a paper gift wrap with the least possible amounts of cut for our texture, because cuts often are visible when we bake into a textures. So when you want to do better than the automatic process, even if it could work fine in our project, what you need to do is to mark sims. So select the edges here. I switch to edge mode here, and you will say, okay, I want a cut here. Press U and mark sim. Then again here, it's where you will be able to cut, to unwrap the texture. If we try it, unwrap angle based, you can see it's broken. It's completely folded because we only allow the cut to happen here. For a box, we need to do inverted U's like this. So another one here, mark sim, mark sim. Here another one. And if we try to unwrap angle base, you can see we have a very simple UV, and it's only one big island, which means if I select a face, it's connected to the rest of the things, and only here on those edges it's cut. Of course, some objects are more complicated than this, and we will talk more about UVs later. Now let's go to the other objects. Toggle local view. Let's do the walls. Edit mode. Add another UV map. Here, name it Simplebake. So now we can do our smart UV project. Unwrap. So you can see here it's not perfect compared to what we unwrapped previously, but that should make the job for this example. Our objects are not too complex, and we are not looking for perfection. Let's repeat the process here on the top. Of course, if you want to practice, do something better than me. Simplebake, U, smart UV project, unwrap. And okay, very bad UVs, but I don't want to spend too much time on it yet, because you will understand exactly what it is doing when we will bake all the objects together. Okay, so now we have a few objects ready to be baked. So what we can do is take them, we select all of them, and currently they are linked in different collections that were used by the 3D designer to organize the project. But we want, when we bake it, to organize it differently. Or maybe you can respect the same collection, but it's not what we are doing here. So we can press M, create a new collection, and let's name it Bake Walls, even if it includes other things. Create. So now they are grouped inside this collection. We select all of them, and let's go back to Simplebake. So here it is, Simplebake. We use clear because it has the floor. We don't want to bake it again now. We press add because we are selecting all the objects. It is added to the list here. Then what we want is the same kind of bake. To make it very fast, especially as I'm recording the video, let's switch to 5 samples, but 1024 is usually a good value. And then we keep the denoise with those settings for now. Open texture settings, and we will want to bake because we are putting multiple objects into one texture. You can increase the output height and the bake height to 4096. Very important, multiple objects to one texture, check it. And the name of the texture you bake into is very important, because if you bake multiple texture, you don't want to overwrite the other texture you will bake into. Let's choose bake walls, because it's the name of our collection on top. Here, it's a good way to remember the texture name. Let's choose exactly the same name. Almost done with the parameters. In UV settings, it can generate UV maps for you automatically, but we've already done it manually. Check prefer existing UVs called Simplebake. It's the one we have created together. And now let's try to bake. Scroll down and bake. Okay, the baking is now in progress. Because I put a very low sample, it's pretty fast here, but expect long minutes when you are looking for the best result, depending on your device and GPU. All right, now the baking is finished, but do you expect something lovely? Now what we have is abstract art. You might wonder, why is that? What we can do is delete inside Simplebake our bakes. Disable the collection and re-enable it. It's the simplest way to unhide all the objects. Let's select all of them. Go to UV editing, hit A. Be sure you have the synchronization ticked here. And you can see that we are painting on top of each other. So if we go, we can see the texture here. All our UVs are overlapping into that big texture. Here you can see you have a part of the painting, and then the walls were baked on top of the other ones. It's because we missed an important part, which is the packing. Packing, it's like a puzzle game. You have a lot of different UVs, and you will try to take the less space possible inside to put our different UV islands. You can pack manually by doing this. We switch to object mode. We have those objects, so I take the floor, I take it, I move it somewhere else, I repeat for all the different objects, I move it somewhere else. By the way, we can clear here this texture because it's not what we are using. Okay, then I take the top, I move it somewhere I didn't move something else. You can see it can take a lot of time if you do it manually. Same here. Now the painting. Be sure you are moving the Simplebake ones. If you switch to Simplebake, it will stay like this. But if ever you switch back to UV map, don't forget to go back to Simplebake. I think it's the last one. Move it somewhere here. All right. Now we take all our objects. We can use a simpler way to do this by doing right click, select objects on our collection, hit A. Oops, I wasn't in edit mode. So select objects, switch to edit mode, A, and okay. You can see you have all of this. And now it's puzzle time. You will take an island, scale it down, put it somewhere, and do this for all the different islands to fill inside the texture, so they are not overlapping, because if it overlaps, like here, then it will be like what we did previously. But if, like me, you are lazy, instead you can use spacebar, pack, UVPack islands. It's something built in by default with Blender. You have different settings. Let's keep the default, except it for margin. Let's say we want to use 0 because we want to save space to have the bigger islands possible. It will scale them. Okay, let's use pack. And now you can see it played Tetris for us nicely. It has big islands. not overlapping. Okay, fine. Let's try to bake again. Switch to object mode. Instead, it won't start. Go back in the render in Simplebake. Scroll down until you find the bake button. And here we go. After a few seconds, the baking is done. Let's see what we have. If we zoom out, we have our texture, but we have a simple problem. The painting is huge while the rest is kind of small, which means probably we are losing detail on some object while the painting is in very high quality. So what we have is not bad, but it's not perfect. There are actually two problems. If you look at the edges here, you can see it's very dirty, especially on the edges, because if you look only at the wall, the texture is nice, but everywhere on the edges, it's bad. Why is that? If we go to UV editing, we take the walls, switch to material preview. Okay, so it's baking here. We can use frame selected. We have this one that is connected to this one. And this one here is dirty. And if we check why, it's because we have no space between our islands. And if we don't, when we bake, the precision is not pixel perfect. So we need to add some space. So when you have the baking here going on the edges, it's not impacting the other islands. Otherwise, it's adding some dirt and doing bad things to some zones. You have a recommendation coming from Simplebake based on the settings you choose for the texture height. Here, because we are in 4K, it says bake margin at 16 pixels. But before packing again, we have another issue. If we look, we have all of our objects. Here, the walls in the real world, they are much bigger than the painting. And still, it is the painting that is taking most of the space of the 4K texture, which is absolutely wrong. It doesn't need that level of details of quality compared to the walls and the other things. Again, you can do it manually if you go to each object. So let's delete our bake because we need to redo it. Take our objects, switch to edit mode and adjust our UVs. You could say, okay, the painting, I scale it down and I give more space to the other objects. But there is much simpler than doing that. That's where I recommend you another plugin. This one is a bit more expensive, $44. It's named UVPackmaster 3. As its name suggests, it's to help you doing packing with tons of features to get tons of space for the texture for the UV islands to get the best quality for your baking. So instead of doing it manually, I will use UVPackmaster. Let's add a bit more space here for it. I expand this. I have UVPackmaster loaded. First, let's make it big again so you will clearly see the difference. To be sure I have all the different UVs. I can use pixel margin and choose 16, which is the recommendation from Simplebake. Say that my texture size is 4K to run the best algorithm for it. I can use pack. It quickly did the best packing it's been able to do while keeping the size of our UV island. Now, if I want it to respect the proportion of the object sizes, I simply click on normalize scale. You have different options here. Run pack again. And now if you look, the packing has been done. And if you search for different faces, you can see the painting is only taking this space, while the floor, which is very big in this 3D world, is taking the correct space. Everything has been normalized based on their real size. Sometimes it's not what you want. You want small objects to have tons of detail. You are allowed to disable it and bake it to other textures too. Maybe a texture for small objects, so they will all be big into this, and another one for bigger objects. By the way, don't forget to save your project from time to time because you can have crashes or your project in stable state. Let's try to bake again because we adjusted our UVs. Again, on the right, our settings are good. We simply hit bake. The bake is finished. Let's go to layout to have a big view of it. Material preview. And so far, what we have baked looks pretty nice because it's this connection. Maybe I can toggle local view. Here is what we have baked. You can see the floor quality is nice. The lighting quality is nice, but we still have some issues between the different islands. This time it's not because our islands are overlapping or are too close to each other. It's because we are using the denoiser. So let's bake it again. Delete these objects. Toggle local view. Re-enable what we want to bake. Okay. And we will change the settings for the denoiser. Here we go. Currently, we are using denoise in cycles, which is run at every step of the baking for each object. So it's denoising, which could impact the other UV islands that are close to each other. Instead, we want to use the compositor, which is a final pass after the whole texture has been generated. Currently, we can't do it because we need to go into export settings, export bakes. Just check it. No worries about the path. And now we can disable it and use denoise compositor. Once done, simply bake again. And it should also be faster because it's not doing the denoise constantly, but only at the end. Baking completed. Let's switch to material preview. Let's go back to the angle and it's much better. It's not 100 perfect. I'm using a very low sample, but you don't see those cuts and things looking weird. We have a much better result. Okay, let's do the other objects, the rest of the objects. We need to prepare the rest of our objects. Let's take, for example, this sofa. We create a new collection because it will be for another texture. Bake, and let's name it objects because it's the rest of the things. Okay, create. Let's try to bake only this for now. We need to set our UVs. UV maps. Add Simplebake. Go to UV editing. You can see the UVs look correct. Okay, let's prepare our baking settings. So here we clear the list. We add our sofa. Very important. Go to the texture setting. And the first thing you change is the name of the texture set name. Because if you keep walls, you will erase your previous bake. If it was a long process, you will hate yourself. So this one is bake objects. And okay, let's try to simply bake this sofa. Click on bake. I was not in object mode. I do it again, bake. Okay, bake is complete. Press OK, go to, well, we can see here the texture. Go to layout, material preview. And you can see that our sofa is completely different from what we saw before baking. And the issue here we have is because our object has a subdivision. And to bake the object, we need to get rid of it to apply the subdivision before being able to bake it. Let's delete our sofa. Delete object. Then we can go back to our bake objects collection, re-enable it. And what we need to do, go to UV editing mode. Take our object. It has the Simplebake UVs. But this time, what we need is to apply the subdivision. Here it's set to 3, but I don't think we will have a huge difference at 2. So okay, let's apply it at 2. Apply, but I need to be in object mode. apply. Now it is applied. And now we are able to see the real shape of the object and to run Smart UV project. It won't be the best UVs you can do and save the most of the space. My recommendation for you to learn UV unwrapping and even advanced baking techniques is for you to subscribe to my dear friend Andrew Woan and watch his advanced tutorials explaining from 3D modeling to UV unwrapping to lighting techniques, explained in a much better way and in a long form video content compared to me right now explaining things in a quick form tutorial. It's the right step if you want to go deeper. For additional comfort when you are doing a UV unwrapping, I recommend you the Zen UV extension. This one is optional. It's more to add comfort and speed when doing it, but the built-in features with Marksim and UV unwrap are often enough for your use cases. And if you are wondering, yes, I collect Blender plugins as Pokemon cards. Even if you decide to purchase the extension or not, there is this video from the plugin to teach you how to UV unwrap like a pro. It guides you using Zen UV, but still it's teaching you great ways to do it. And it's a short form content, so I highly recommend you this. Link in the description. But for this simple project, I will continue to use Smart UV project. It should give me enough good results. So let's go through all the different objects quickly. We have the sofa. It's done. It's added to this collection. Now let's take the pillow. So we need to apply the different modifiers. Start from the top one. Command A to apply the modifier. Apply them. Then add the other UV map, Simplebake, switch to edit mode, and Smart UV project, unwrap. Okay, if some are giving you weird results, maybe here, for example, you have single line one, press A, spacebar, merge by distance, and you can see it removed 24 vertices, which means you had very close vertices. It's not adding any value. Once you've done it, redo it, Smart UV project, re-unwrap, and you will see the line disappeared and your UVs should be perfect. Okay, a good way to remember what we need to process. So here we can move to bake objects. And let's simply hide bake objects. So when we add things to it, they will disappear and we simply take them until we don't have anything to do. So let's hide Simplebakes 2 and let's do the rest of the objects. Now let me speedrun the process to do all the other objects. Okay, it took me a few minutes, but it's done. We don't have any objects anymore. So what we can do is re-enable bake objects in UV editing, because now what we want to do, we have all our UVs, we want to pack. To be sure to have all the objects, because some objects are children of other objects, you can do select objects and you will be sure you have everything. Switch to edit mode, A, and now we want to pack. We will use our best friend UVPackmaster 3. We have the same parameters enabled, normalize scale, and we use pack. Okay, let's see what we have. It made a huge pack, but it's a bit weird. We have very big objects here while some are very small. So now we can use this mode to detect which one it is. If we take this circle or this one, we can use frame selected to diagnose which object is detected as very big in the world. While here, it's smaller than the table, smaller than the rug, but it was detected here as a very big object. And the reason is based on the scale of the object. If we go to item, switch to object mode, it was this object, right? You can see that the scale is very small, which means if this object was at 1, 1, 1, which is what is used to do the calculation, it's huge compared to its size we had. So to avoid it to be interpreted like a huge object, we simply go to the object, press Command A or on the top object, apply and scale. The others, it's fine, but you need to apply the scale. So now it's 1, 1, 1. And what we see is the real scale. You need to do that on all objects, but sometimes you can use it as a trick. So the normalized scale, we make some objects bigger because you want a bigger quality. I hope I'm not confusing you by adding this information. So let's quickly check all the objects that were causing issues. Select objects, edit mode. Okay, this one, it will be fixed. This one, yeah, it's the same. But for this one, it's something we could get rid of because it's taking space in the texture. It will take less space because we made the fix. But still, it's something that is invisible because if we re-enable the walls, it's hidden by the wall. So invisible things like this, you can just press X in edit mode and faces. This way, it will free up a lot of space for the texture while it's something invisible, so no reason to use space with it. You have the same, I guess, for the rug. Let's hide again the walls. Below the rug, it's invisible, so you can take it, delete the face. Do it for all the objects, but here we're doing it simply and quickly, so I won't do it much. But in production project, it's good to do this. All right, reselect all our objects. Well, be sure you have all of them. Edit mode, A, and let's try to pack again. Okay, and I think some other objects are taking too much space, so let's diagnose it. Frame selected. It's this table. So I guess the scale is wrong. Here, okay. And the scale also is wrong. Apply scale. But a simpler way to do this, select all the objects. Object, apply scale. And now all the objects are with the one scale. Okay, now let's repack, edit mode, and pack. Now we have a much more convincing texture. You can see this one is the top of the rug, which is correct, knowing that it is a big thing between the different objects that we want to bake. Okay, so now let's bake it. Before baking, because you want the shadows of the walls and the other objects, you need to re-enable the things. Usually, I don't like to re-enable the previously baked objects because it is already baked and the light influence can be wrong. So usually I disable it, I re-enable the non-baked things. We can easily re-hide them later by disabling the collection. This way we ensure we have the pure shadows and light we expect to have. Once you're good, go here, add all the objects we want to bake. So bake objects, select objects, all these objects, add. Now it's a big list. When you do this, you hope you didn't make too many mistakes, but no worries, you will always do some mistakes. And bake. Okay, let's see what we have so far. The bake is done. Material preview. So material preview, we don't have any lights. From here, it looks lovely. We need to remove to hide what is inside the bake walls. So we can disable the collection. Okay, so here is the final bake. It looks lovely, but still it's not 100% perfect. If you look here, we have minor issue. This one is on the walls we did earlier, and this one is even more visible. If we look at the table, frame selected, you can see here there are some artifacts. Let me explain what is happening. If we go to UV editing, on the table, let's zoom where it happens. Let's load bake object, so it's baking into this texture. Okay, and here it is. What happens is that the denoiser, when it's denoising, okay, we have a margin that is respected and we have the precision, but here we have, I think the table foot. And because the denoising is a bit mixing things to remove the noise, because we don't have enough space between the different islands, it's adding these artifacts you can see here. So if we look precisely this one, you can see it's something else that is impacting this UV island. The simplest solution for it is you take all the objects you want to rebake, and sorry for that. Okay, back to UV editing and select objects. Don't forget, because they are children's. Okay, press A and you will pack again. And instead of using 16, which is what recommend you Simplebake for 4K texture, you can increase it one step beyond, let's say 24. Try more if you have still issues, but don't overdo it to still have good texture size and texture quality. And also you can increase slightly the precision of the packing to respect it as best as it can. Pack again. All right, the packing has been done. We have a bit more space between the islands, but now to bake again, there is something we need to do, and then I'm not a big fan of doing it. Go to layout. We need to remove the previously baked object from bake objects, but because they are all merged into Simplebake bakes, maybe there is a way to add to different collection. If it is, I'm just stupid for not using it. What I usually do is I create a new outliner, a view layer. So it's the same thing that what you have on the right. I keep one locked on Simplebake, another one on the collection I need to redo, and a painful way to do it, I delete the baked objects. So the floor, the frame, and so on. The floor it doesn't need. The next one is chair, we've done it. Curtains too, so lamp. Light must be inside. Painting, pillow, plant, pot, rug, sofa. Okay, table too. The wall is separate. We get rid of them. Floor, frame, lamp, delete. Walls, okay, and a window is here, so we get rid of it too. Okay, now we can disable it, re-enable the walls, and bake again. Here, bake. All right, let's see what we have now. Material preview, and if we look back at the table, we don't have our artifacts anymore. Here you can see a bit an issue, but it's where the UV cut is made. If we want to spend more time on it to polish it, but from far away you won't see it, you will need to add the cut somewhere less visible. And of course, I recommend you to do the bake with a higher sample rate than 5, which is what I am currently using to have a good looking result. Once you are happy with your bake, file, export, GLB. If you didn't close it, you don't have to reset all the parameter. Living room baked. Be sure you have compression. Modifier applied. We already did it manually, but you can keep it. Material WebP format. Maybe increase the quality of it. And export GLTF. Now inside our project, we can add underscore baked. And we don't need lights anymore. We can get rid of it. Looks nice, but I think I forgot to hide objects. Well, I guess they are hidden, but when you export, Sorry, I forgot that. Include, I usually limit to visible objects. Export again. And yes, the result is much better. It looks like the painting tool also is overlapped. And I think I deleted the painting as a mistake. So I would need to re-enable it and rebake. And by the way, you can rebake only one object. If you go back to the settings, you clear the list here. You only add the object you want to bake. And just be sure that you are not repacking because it would break all the UVs. And just uncheck clear existing bake image before bake. This way you can rebake an object if you made a mistake like I did. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit the like button to help the channel be more visible to other creative developers. In a future video, we will explore advanced baking techniques and exporting tips for Three.js. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments and I will answer them in that video. Don't forget to subscribe to not miss it. If you want to continue your 3D web development journey, give a look to my course, link in the description, or watch one of my other videos like this one, available here.